Disclaimer: this is audio horror fiction. If darkness or the creatures it holds scares you, leave now. Still listening? Good. Then let's begin. Divorce is hard. Divorce is harder when there's a young child involved. It's even harder still when your ex is an ass and deliberately goes out of his way to complicate everything he can in whatever way he can, even if it meant hurting our daughter. I didn't want May to be stuck in the middle of an increasingly toxic situation, so the minute I was able to, I rented the first place to pop up in my budget and got us both out of there. It was no dream home, just a narrow 2-story with a sagging porch across the front. Between it and the placement of the windows, it almost looked like the place was frowning at us as we pulled up. But it was cheap, it was ready, and it was away from Cody, which practically made it paradise in my book. May, on the other hand, wasn't nearly as easily won over. The first night there, she crawled into bed with me and huddled against my side. "I don't like it," she whispered. "Sorry, kiddo, I know it's not great, but it's only for a little while." "The walls make noise," she complained. "It's an old house. Sometimes they do that." "I want to go home. They didn't do that there." I know. It's hard to make a 5-year-old understand that home wasn't home anymore. Even though Cody and I had both explained to her that Mommy and Daddy loved her very much and we were going to be living in 2 houses from now on, I wasn't sure how much had actually sunk in. The entire first week seemed to be one long exercise in patience. May was moody and easily upset. She wanted her normal routine back. She wanted Daddy. She wanted to go home. I told her over and over that this was home now, but that just made her scream louder. I'm actually surprised none of my new neighbors called CPS on me for all the tantrums she threw. Nothing I did seemed to matter. I finally broke down and called Cody, hoping that a visit with Daddy might make her feel better, but he just laughed. "You want it out so bad, Suzanne. You deal with it," he said. I reminded him that the "it" he was referring to was our daughter, who was scared and confused, but he just scoffed and hung up. If I had any doubts about leaving him before, they were certainly all gone now. The thing about kids, though, is that they're resilient. It took some time, but May eventually began to warm up to the house. Even started sleeping in her own room once she got used to all the groans and sighs that come with age settling, and I breathed a huge sigh of relief. First hurdle overcome, and with no help from Cody, maybe I'd be able to handle this single mother thing after all. I knew things were really starting to improve when May started mentioning an imaginary friend. It was just such a normal thing for someone her age to do, and getting us back to normal had been my goal since the beginning. I had just gotten out of the shower after a long day, and May was sitting in the bathroom doorway, playing with a pair of Barbies. I reached down to ruffle her hair before I dragged a comb through my own. She giggled and peeked up at me from behind a curtain of messy bangs. "I know something you don't," she said. "Oh yeah?" "Yeah." "You're going to tell me what it is?" "No." I stuck out my tongue at her in the mirror and she grinned impishly. "Why not?" I asked. "'Cause it's a secret." "But I'm really good at keeping secrets." May shook her head resolutely. "Nope, the man in the mirror said no." "The man in the mirror?" I paused, my comb halfway through a length of wet hair, and I glanced over my shoulder. "Yeah, he lives in there and talks to me sometimes, but you're not supposed to know." "Oh, right. Well, I certainly don't know about any man in the mirror." "Good." May had always had a very active imagination, and the man in the mirror wasn't her first invisible friend. The last, and longest one, had been a purple tiger named Tofu, who slept under her bed and walked across ceilings instead of floors. "Does he have a name?" "Mister." "Well, you tell Mister it's time to brush your teeth and go to bed." May tucked one Barbie under each arm and stood up. "He's not there right now, Mama," she said as if it were painfully obvious. "Duh, silly me, guess you're on your own then." She heaved a dramatic sigh, hung her head low, and dragged her feet across the floor as she made her way to her room to change into pajamas. I stifled a laugh and dried off, happy to see my little girl was bouncing back. May became quite fond of Mister, Sometimes I'd find her in the bathroom, sitting on the floor and playing while she chatted away about her day. "He came to visit me," she'd tell me when I found her. "He said to tell you hi." "Tell him I say hi back." "Okay, Mama, that'll make him happy. He likes you. He says you're pretty." "That's very nice of him." She'd nod and return to whatever she was doing, and I'd smile, but it was bittersweet. It seemed pretty obvious that Mr. was just May's way of coping with her father's sudden absence. He was a friendly guy who said nice things and spent time with her, just like she subconsciously wished her dad would do, and it broke my heart. When I tried to bring it up with Cody, he was his usual charming self and told me that May was 5, it was just a little kid playing pretend, and it meant nothing. He refused to consider she might be hurting and ended a phone call with a signature hang-up. May, for her part, seemed entirely unaware of what Mr. might symbolize, and she was quite happy to tell me about his visits, which often just boiled down to her talking to the mirror. About a month after Mr. made his first appearance, I started to notice something odd. Some of my things, just small items that I used every day, but never really took much stock of, started to get used up more quickly than I was used to, especially my perfume. I didn't think I had been wearing it that much. Just a spray here and there when I could be bothered to remember it in the morning, but half the bottle was gone. "May," I called over my shoulder while looking through my makeup bag. "May, can you come here?" I heard her little feet scamper out from her bedroom and she appeared in the doorway. "Honey, have you been using my perfume and lipstick?" I knew she liked to play dress up sometimes, but usually she asked first. "No," she said, but it was with that child's slyness that told me she thought she had found a loophole, so technically she wasn't lying. "May?" I turned and held up my half-empty perfume bottle. "It wasn't me," she insisted. "Not really." "Not really?" I asked patiently. "Sometimes Mr. likes it when I spray the perfume," she admitted slowly. "And lipstick?" She shrugged. "I think he comes out of the mirror sometimes." "To put on makeup." She nodded solemnly. "Okay, sure. Who said the man in the mirror couldn't like feeling pretty every once in a while?" "Well, you tell Mister that he's allowed to use my stuff, but only if he asks my permission first, okay?" "Okay, Mama." I thought that'd put an end to it. And then I noticed some of my more risque panties were missing. I didn't own many, so it wasn't hard to notice when I was a pair short. After I discovered that, I went to May's room and sat on the edge of her bed, patting the spot next to me so she'd join. "May, have you been in my undies drawer?" "Ew, no," she giggled scandalously. "Are you sure?" "Gross." "Then do you know where a pair of mine might have gone?" "Maybe Mister took them." "You think Mister took a pair of Mama's underwear?" "I don't know, maybe." She leaned in and waved me close so she could cup her hands around my ear and whisper, "I think he likes it when you're in your undies." I pulled back with a frown and looked down at May, who didn't seem to understand why that kind of statement coming out of such a young child's mouth might be worrying. "Why would you say that?" "'Cause sometimes when you're in the shower, if I put my ear against the mirror and listen real close, I can hear him breathing. He doesn't answer me when I try to talk to him though, probably 'cause he doesn't want you to hear." Breathing? I swallowed hard, a cold prickly feeling crawling up my neck. Nothing about what she was saying sounded like normal imaginary friend activities, and certainly didn't sound like something a 5-year-old would think up on her own. "Uh-huh. I think he waits for you to be done with your shower so he can see you get dressed. Daddy used to say that he liked your undies. Maybe Mister does too." "Okay, kiddo. Just stay here, okay?" "Okay, Mama." I got up and crept to the bathroom, where I closed the door and stood in front of the mirror staring at my reflection. I listened closely, but I heard nothing, just the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. It was crazy to even think Mister was just make-believe, the product of May's imagination. But what kind of imaginary friend steals Mama's panties? My fingers had closed on my hairdryer lying on the counter beside me, and before I had any more time to second-guess myself, I hurled it at the mirror. I shielded my face from the glass that came raining down from the wall, and immediately regretted it. I had read too much into May's mischievous imagination. Of course she was just repeating things her dad had said, or using my makeup and then blaming Mister. Of course, I should have been rational and really thought about it before busting up a mirror in a rental house. It had been an impulsive decision. It had been dumb and dangerous. It had also uncovered a camera sitting on a tripod in the tight crawl space between the walls. The mirror, I realized with a knife-like twist in my gut, had been a two-way. I was wrenched out of my frozen horror by the frantic sound of scuffling coming from around the corner, as if someone was trying to squeeze quickly back through the crawl space to get away. "Stay in your room, May," I screamed as I slid out of the bathroom, my fear fast giving way to Mama Bear rage. I took to the stairs 2 and 3 at a time, pulling myself down the banister and leaping from the last step to grab the front door and yank it open. I only had enough time to see a man peeling away from the curb across the street, but it was enough. I recognized the car from the few encounters I had had with its owner. I turned and hurried back inside to call the police to report my landlord for spying on us from behind our bathroom mirror. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and share to help feed the dark machine.